we say local content, the law recognizes it as Nigerian content. What we are talking about is the development of the quantum of value added in Nigeria in the oil and gas industry. You know, when we're doing a lot of work in the Nigerian oil and gas industry, and before now, over 80 to 90% of the value was exported because the goods and services that were being supplied to Nigeria were all imported. So there was a need to get more value retained in Nigeria by doing more in Nigeria. In that way, you will also increase the participation of Nigerians, grow the impact of the oil and gas industry on the GDP of Nigeria, and generally improve our national development indices.
I want to know exactly in what ways this participation by indigents can be promoted.
At the end of the day, the participation of the indigents is affected by the quantum of work they do, the amount of products that are supplied from within the country, the ownership of the equipment and companies used in doing these services. And it is by growing the quantum of work that is done in Nigeria, by domiciling more work in Nigeria, that you create more opportunities for Nigerians to work in the industry. And one of the best ways of doing that is by insisting that the oil companies who do most of the operations actually give work to companies that are domiciled in Nigeria. So the law has now made it mandatory that companies that have traditionally done their work for Nigerian projects abroad have to move back into Nigeria, do the work in Nigeria, establish offices in Nigeria, establish facilities in Nigeria, support indigenous service providers to grow, and it is within this framework that more Nigerians are employed. And naturally, much more work will be done closer to the oil fields. This also has linkage to employing more people from the oil-bearing communities and reducing the tension associated with the Niger Delta crisis, if you know what I mean.
Okay, apart from the job generation factor, can we talk about transfer of technology? Does this come in?
Oh, the quickest way to transfer technology is by doing. So it's one thing to go to school and to get a lot of theoretical training until you actually start seeing it at close quarters, touching these things you study in school, getting a live interaction with this equipment, with these new technologies. You don't have actually technology acquisition. So the shortcut to technology acquisition is getting it done in Nigeria, getting Nigerians to participate in the doing, and then learning from it. And we're seeing very, very clear manifestations of this transfer over the past 4 years that this policy has been working.
But that is just about half of the matter. What about the equipment, the sophisticated equipment?
The sophisticated equipment...
how do we get the Nigerianness of that? Because these are still manufactured abroad. We still have to import them?
Yeah, the journey of 1,000 miles begins with one step. And we have long-term plans for manufacturing of many of these equipment in Nigeria. You will see as we progress that even up to things like ships and vessels can be built in Nigeria and will eventually be built in Nigeria. We are beginning to create the framework and the environment to ensure that the equipment like valves are actually assembled in Nigeria. Some part of the manufacturing process will continue to migrate into Nigeria. And that is a factor in giving work to companies in the oil and gas industry now. So whilst we cannot claim that we are going to start making turbines in Nigeria in the next 5-10 years, basic oil and gas industry technology is being migrated as we speak into Nigeria. A group of gentlemen just left my office now. They're talking about where and how they will set up facilities to manufacture valves, and these are high-tech equipment valves.
So now that we're talking about involving Nigerians, who are some of the Nigerians who are hoping to get into the industry are right now outside the industry. How can such people that are currently outside the industry take advantage of the new law? Because we're looking at having more and more Nigerians get involved.
The industry itself, traditionally the oil and gas industry is not a big employer of numbers. However, the industries supporting it, the service industry around the oil and gas industry, can actually do a lot of employment. And what we are trying to do is to get the operators who have devolved most of the work to multinational service companies to now generate work for local service providers. And we in the board are capturing data about Nigerians, their competencies. We will categorize them, we check what qualifications they have, what experience they have, both those in Nigeria and those in the diaspora. It will all be captured in a database which will eventually be accessible to employers of labor, to professionals and vocationals that are both in Nigeria and elsewhere. And you would, just by the press of a button, see opportunities available for employment and available skill sets and competencies to employ for. Because it's one thing to say we want Nigerians to get employed. It's another thing to find Nigerians who have the requisite competencies to be employed in the oil and gas sector. But one of the guiding principles for this whole law is getting Nigerians trained and getting them employed, because that is the final destination. That's the ultimate goal of domiciliation and Nigerian content development.
Okay, let's talk a bit now about the business angle.
Yes.
What in the law gives advantage to Nigerian companies over and above the well-established multinationals when there is a bid?
When there is a bid, there is a provision in the law that says that there will be first consideration for Nigerian companies, indigenous companies, who can demonstrate a capability. So it's not just enough to go and register a company and say, I'm a Nigerian company, therefore you must give me first consideration. First and foremost, the company you're registering, the company you're building, has to understand the industry. It's got to have the capabilities, the basic things that you must have to participate in this industry. If you want to set up a drilling company, or if you have a drilling company, it must have assets in it. There must be some capabilities in that company that make you a drilling company or a fabrication company. One of the ways of achieving that is to enter into a partnership, a genuine partnership with a foreign service provider. Now, there are many companies that operate as agents to foreign companies. So what do? They use their Nigerianness to get a job under the framework that the Nigerian company is being given a job. Then they go out and either get the foreign company to execute the work or take equipment from a foreign company and execute the work. What that does is just taking money from Nigeria and sending it back out again.
So how do you check that?
How you check that is that we're going to verify the corporate structures of every company. Already we're sending out notices, and you'll see that they even directly to stakeholders and in the public media to notify all stakeholders that the clause in the law that requires Nigerian indigenous companies to have 51% Nigerian owned shares is going to be verified, and that the clause that requires that 50% of equipment being used for prosecuting work in Nigeria has to be owned by the Nigerian subsidiaries of multinational companies. We're going out to capture all that data and we're going to analyze that and categorize the companies so that at the press of the button, you would see the clear picture of every company that's trying to participate.